welcome to the very first Education Plus podcast. And it's very exciting that today we are at ICASA in Harare, Zimbabwe. This year, ICASA conference theme is AIDS is not over. This reflects the efforts that we as the community have to take on to make sure that we are fighting together when it comes to AIDS. So I'm with very amazing young people today. I'll let them introduce themselves, tell us who they are, where they're coming from, and what they're doing. Over.
Hi, thank you so much. And we also welcome everybody to the podcast. My name is Harizon Ayalo from Kenya. I work with Population Services Kenya as a social behavior change and communication officer for HIV self-testing in the private sector. Amen.
My name is Rahman Suleiman and I am a gamification and game thinking design. I'm also enabling young women and adolescent girls to start and grow their own social businesses to promote gender equality and climate resilience.
Thank you. I also did not introduce myself. I am Jennifer Kayomba. I'm from Tanzania. I'm a sexual reproductive health and rights advocate. So coming back to you, Rahma, what does let community lead mean to you as a young person?
Letting community lead, it's more of transferring power to community so they can play their leadership roles in the HIV response. And maybe for that they can actually provide a little bit context. For example, when we say community, we are actually highlighting different stakeholders, for example, families, CSOs, and others. And maybe potentially for civil society organization, we are looking in a way that how can we meaningfully engage them to actually create and implement responsive programs to actually intervene in HIV response and AIDS. So that's my understanding.
Thank you. Coming back to you, Harry, you have mentioned that you're working around social behavior change area.
Yeah.
So what does let community lead means to you relating to what you're doing?
Perfect. So I'll start it from where my colleague has left it at. And I think there couldn't be a better theme than this, because I really feel that we're now getting it right. Community are the most affected in with this epidemic. And I feel that we're now taking power to the community. So if we talk about let community lead, it's about, putting them at the center of the fight against HIV, giving them the resources that they require, giving them the information that they require, and leaving the community now to take lead in the fight against HIV. And I think this is the right way to go.
Thank you, Harry. So, we all know that you're a young man, and probably, you were also an adolescent boy. So, can you at least share your experience when it comes to engagement of adolescent boys and young men, especially when it comes to HIV and sexual reproductive health and rights programming? How does it look? How does it look to you? Do you think we are doing enough, or what should we do to do it better?
Yes, of course. I would want to start by saying that adolescents are showing a growing share of people who are, being affected, or other people living with HIV right now. And I feel, and these are my personal opinion, that there has been deliberate effort to neglect adolescent boys, when it's come to empowering them to, with information, and also, enable them to understand what is HIV. There are a lot of programs that target young girls. So, girls are now getting the opportunity really to be mentored by this program, get right information on sexual and reproductive health, but this is leaving out a boy child. So I feel that to tame this epidemic, we need equality. We need to empower both adolescent girls and boys together so that nobody is left behind.
Thank you so much, Harry. And you have reminded me of something. So where I'm coming from, Tanzania, nowadays, we have seen a lot of gender-based violence cases of raping adolescent boys. And it has been one of the things that a lot of activists now are advocating
Sure.
for. And this, I think, it's also because we are not well educating our adolescent boys on how to know themselves better, to understand when they're being exposed to GBV, how to report these cases,
Sure.
as we are doing to AGYW.
Yeah.
So I think there's something that we should do as the community to make sure that we are not we are not leaving behind adolescent boys and young men.
And maybe just to add on that,
Yes, sure.
you find that we're empowering girls and we're not empowering boys. So we end up with girls who are informed, they know their right, but we don't have boys who are informed. So the boy child find is very difficult, even in their own relationships, even in the class, they can't cope up. So there are a lot of fight between boys and girls because the boy child can't understand the empowered girl. Yeah.
So that means when we're talking about Agenda 2030, goal number 5, gender equality, it will come a time that we'll be advocating for the rights of adolescent boys and young men.
Absolutely.
Okay, coming back to you, Rahma. So as Education Plus keep on advocating on keeping girls in school. So this shows how school remains as an epicenter for the health and well-being of adolescents and young people in communities. Can you speak on how communities can leverage such institutions in driving progress in sexual reproductive health rights and HIV?
I think firstly we need to understand that these institutions are the main gateway for adolescent girls and young women and young people to reach out to their visions and dreams. And I feel like they can also leverage on these institutions by providing information and relevant information to these groups. For example, right now in Education Plus, we are speaking of comprehensive sexuality education. And this is actually highlighting the importance of how we can actually reach out to the visions that we have. How are we going to end AIDS? We are advocating to have comprehensive sexuality education, but we use secondary education as an entry point. So this is one of the areas that they can actually leverage on. But we are also looking around learning the lifestyles of these particular groups. When we speak about these institutions, these are the areas where we can actually be free with these groups to learn more of their lifestyles, their behavior, and everything for us to be able to intervene correctly in a response to HIV and AIDS. And another thing I feel like it's we can actually make this as a community of practice, like where we actually meet with students, with teachers, with different stakeholders to learn out what we are actually doing, how best can we strengthen our partnerships together to make sure that we reach out to the outcomes that we are aiming. So I would say that.
Thank you so much, Rahma. I think that's really makes sense because we are also the real example or the real living testimony on how education plays. We all have at some point finished our secondary education. For example, me, my university education, and today I'm here. So I think we really truly continue insisting on how important education is to adolescent girls in our communities. So coming back to you, Harry, can you tell us what do you think we should do better when it comes to empowering, motivating, capacitating adolescent boys and young men?
Okay, thank you for that question. And even before I respond to that really, really, I found very profound in the fight against HIV, especially among the adolescents. Comprehensive sexual education. And I think we need to pull ourselves from the bucket of denial that these adolescents are not sexually active. They are sexually active, and I feel we have positioned comprehensive sexual education as a form of immorality, which shouldn't be the case because these people need information. They need the right information because give me information, you have empower a whole community. So we need to move forward to give them right information, and it should be comprehensive so that they get it from the word go. As young they are, they have the right information. Back to your question. I feel there are things we need to do better in. One, in designing our program. So let's design the program with the end user, and in this context, the adolescents, boys. Let's design the program with them. They will own the program. They will take the ownership. They will really feel engaged, and then we will now bring the conversation about meaningful youth engagement. So it is engagement beyond just representation. We engage them in designing, implementation, and even monitoring and evaluating the program. Second, about research. Let's go back to basic. Let's go to understand why these adolescents still feel that they are not at risk. And indeed, they are at risk. So let's go to research. Let's do more research about understanding the adolescent. And this is going to get us the evidence-based. So we are going to make our decision, even design our program from an evidence-based. Third is about leadership. So let's also position these adolescents as leaders in our community, right? Because they have the power to influence their peers. They have the powers to, really dictate what their peers consume, in their day-to-day life. So I feel those three things are very important, and above all, advocacy. Advocacy means how do we design messages for the adolescent, and how do we involve the adolescent now to take up these roles? It's going to be very important because information is very key, and when we position the adolescents as key advocates in the community, then we're going to win, really, this.
Thank you so much, Harry. That was very, very powerful. I think what I'm getting from you is we should not tell what young people to do.
Yeah.
Instead, we should engage them, empower them,
Yeah, sure.
capacitate them, and making sure they're engaged in the whole process, from planning, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. Coming back to you, Rahma, can you respond to the same question as a young woman?
Thank you very much. So I think for this point, maybe I can highlight where I'm coming from, Tanzania, our country. For so many years, maybe not only in Tanzania, but for so many years, we've been advocating for comprehensive sexuality education, and we've been implementing some programs under that category. So I feel like it's also a high point for us now to start piloting how we can actually implement maybe 100% age-appropriate comprehensive education, and see if ever we're going to get the results that we are aiming to have by end 2030. So that's one of the areas that I feel like we can actually do better. And on another thing, it is more on investing in adolescent girls and young women's leadership, because we've seen some of the good examples. For example, now in Education Plus, we have amazing young women who are leading change in their communities in HIV responses. So we've gained a lot from that process, and it shows that it is possible. So we can also invest on that particular area. And lastly,
And lastly, oh, you don't have.
Just give me 1 minute. Education, comprehensive sexuality education, leadership. Yeah. Okay. And lastly, it's more on investing on civil society organizations. How can we influence change together as a collective, but also how we actually ensuring that they get information, updated information, knowledge and capacity to implement their programs underground, because it's also very important for them to have a high level understanding and capacity in terms of resources, in terms of the ability to reach out to different areas. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rahma. I truly agree with you, but I also think we should also not neglect the fact that there are some very important groups in the community that we're leaving behind. For instance, parents, religious leaders, culture, and traditional leaders. I think they also play a very great role in making sure that we moving together, like they become an advocate when it comes to HIV and SRHR programming response. These are the people that they are living with young people. They have an influence on them. So I think my to do better will be, it's highly time in programming and whatever that we are doing, we should not leave these people behind. Like they play a very key role in whatever that we are doing in order to get sustainable impact or outcome that we want to see. So thank you guys for watching and listening to us. I hope you have learned a lot of things and looking forward for our next podcast. Education Plus, keeping girls in school.